For centuries, the galaxy had carried a comfortable lie that humanity was gone. The fall of Earth had been televised across thousands of systems, the final transmissions showing oceans boiling under orbital fire, cities reduced to molten scars. The Council of Species, a grand coalition that had long envied humanity's recklessness and brilliance, called it the cleansing of soul. They celebrated their victory under banners of peace, claiming they had saved the stars from humanity's chaos. But beneath that triumph lay something colder, a gnawing fear that refused to die. No species forgot the way humans had fought, the way they had turned desperation into strategy and hopelessness into invention. Even in extinction, they haunted memory. Every generation was told the same tale: Earth burned and the humans were no more. Yet the void has a way of keeping secrets. It began as a whisper among deep space prospectors near the Perseus expanse. Strange readings, gravitational distortions where no mass should exist. At first, the Council dismissed it as phantom data, the noise of decaying satellites or rogue black holes. But the distortions grew stronger, rhythmic, almost deliberate, like the pulse of something alive beneath space-time itself. Entire fleets of research drones were sent to investigate, but none returned. And then, without warning, the expanse erupted. A crack split open in the fabric of reality, a wound of light that swallowed everything around it. From within that blinding storm, something began to emerge, a silhouette vast enough to eclipse suns. The first ships to witness it were civilian traders. Their crews froze as scanners failed, navigation systems rebooted, and a deep, metallic vibration shook the decks. Out of the storm drifted a vessel beyond comprehension. It was no ordinary warship. It was a monument, a structure of impossible scale, its hull layered in dark alloy, the surface etched with markings that shimmered faintly under starlight. They were letters from a dead language, Terran script, scorched yet proud, spelling the names of the lost: New York, Tokyo, Nairobi, London, Moscow, Sao Paulo. Whole civilizations engraved into the skin of the machine, as if the Ark itself carried the memory of Earth upon its body. The traders transmitted emergency reports, but before the messages reached the nearest relay, every system around the anomaly went silent. The only thing that escaped was a single pulse of transmission, ancient, simple, undeniable. Across the galaxy, military command centers lit up with red alerts. The Council's communication arrays captured the signal and translated it. The voice that came through was faint, distant, distorted by centuries of static, yet perfectly human. It spoke two words that froze the blood of every listener: "We endure." No threat, no greeting, just the quiet defiance of a species that was supposed to be dust. For the first time in living memory, the Council chambers fell silent. Generals exchanged fearful glances. Scientists argued that it was impossible. A transmission from ghosts, one delegate muttered. But deep down, they all knew. Humanity had been too clever, too stubborn, too proud to simply vanish. If any species could cheat extinction, it would be them. The Ark did not move with haste or aggression. It simply was. A colossal object that existed in defiance of time, radiating the stillness of inevitability. Attempts to scan it failed miserably. Probes sent toward it were shredded by invisible waves of energy. Ships that approached too close lost contact, only to reappear days later adrift and derelict. Their crews missing, but their data cores filled with fragments of human symbology. Maps, prayers, old songs, even fragments of children's laughter recorded on ancient Terran frequencies. To the alien minds who found them, it was madness. To those who remembered the stories, it was prophecy. Rumors spread faster than light. Entire planetary networks were flooded with panic. "The humans have returned," people whispered. "The ghosts of Earth walk again." On frontier colonies, old human-made relics began to activate. Forgotten machinery that had lain dormant for ages, suddenly humming with new life. Artificial intelligences, once thought obsolete, flickered to awareness, muttering in old Earth dialects, awaiting orders from a signal only they could hear. Something vast was awakening, and it was bound to that ship, the Last Ark. In the Council archives, scholars frantically searched through forbidden records of the war against Earth. They found references to something called Project Exodus, an initiative launched in humanity's final days. It was dismissed as fantasy then, a desperate dream of fleeing extinction. But the recovered fragments suggested something more terrifying. Humanity hadn't fled randomly. They had planned, built, hidden. The Ark had been designed to seed a future, to wait until the galaxy had forgotten, then to return. The first direct visual feed came from a military reconnaissance satellite orbiting a nearby system. It captured a single image before disintegrating, a massive vessel shaped like an elongated crescent, its surface alive with faint golden energy, surrounded by debris that glowed like stars caught in orbit. Engineers studying the image noticed something impossible. The Ark was not constructed, it was grown. The metals forming its hull were self-repairing, interwoven with organic structures that pulsed like muscle. It was a living ship, the final synthesis of human technology and evolution. By the time the Council convened its emergency session, the entire Perseus sector had gone dark. Trade routes were closed. Fleets vanished without a trace. And yet, through all the fear and chaos, one truth became clear. This was not an invasion. There were no attacks, no demands, no ultimatums, only silence. And in that silence, the galaxy began to hear its own heartbeat reflected back from the void. Humanity had not returned with rage, they had returned with patience. That, more than anything, terrified the galaxy. Because anger could be reasoned with, but purpose, cold, ancient, deliberate, could not. And so, under the shadow of a ship that should not exist, the galaxy waited, trembling before the impossible truth that it had tried to bury. The humans were not gone. They had simply been waiting for the stars to forget their name, so that when they spoke it again, the universe would listen. In the cold heart of the Galactic Council's capital, a planet-sized citadel of glass and light named Iridian Prime, the Great Hall erupted into chaos. Dozens of species, each more alien than the last, spoke over one another in panic, their voices layering into a storm of fear. The signal from the Perseus expanse had spread like wildfire, crashing through encryption walls and military firewalls alike. The words, "We endure," had echoed through every communication array, from mining colonies on the galactic rim to the core's throne worlds. No matter how advanced the species, no matter how ancient their civilization, every translation carried the same chilling precision. It was a human message. It was not a distress call. It was a declaration of presence. The council speaker, an elder being with translucent flesh and silver veins that pulsed like liquid light, struck the chamber's resonance gong to restore order. "This is an illusion," he said, his voice trembling beneath a mask of authority. "A trick. Humanity is extinct." But his words carried no weight. Around him, screens flickered with data, real, impossible data. Energy readings from the expanse climbed beyond measurable limits. Sensor satellites exploded from the strain of proximity. And in the static of every destroyed probe, one sound repeated, a faint heartbeat. Not mechanical, but organic, rhythmic, deliberate, as if the very void itself had learned to pulse with life. The Council's scientific division, the Synod of Mind, worked tirelessly to decode the phenomenon. Their brightest xenologists and energy physicists argued until their voices broke. "It's a rogue AI," one insisted. "A remnant of the Terran war machines." Another countered. "No, it's biological. The energy signature is self-regulating. It's feeding on cosmic radiation." The debate ended when a junior analyst, trembling, ran into the chamber clutching a datapad. "It's neither," she said softly. "It's both." When she expanded the image, the chamber fell silent. The readings showed a vessel composed of both alloy and organic latticework, synchronized at a molecular level. The Ark was alive and aware. Panic spread through the fleet commands. Armadas mobilized without orders, battle stations powered their weapons, and admirals whispered of the old war. The cleansing of Sol had cost the Council trillions of lives. Entire species had nearly gone extinct fighting humanity's last stand. They had sworn that such chaos would never return. Yet now, in the void beyond charted space, the very nightmare they erased had stirred once more. One by one, military outposts in the Perseus sector went silent. Not destroyed, not attacked, simply gone. Their signals cut off in mid-transmission, as if swallowed by a greater presence. In the shadows of Eridian's intelligence halls, agents uncovered something even more disturbing. Throughout the centuries since Earth's fall, humanity's data, its art, its code, its language, had been carefully purged from galactic archives. Yet now, fragments of those forbidden files began to reappear spontaneously. Digital systems across thousands of planets suddenly contained traces of Terran coding buried deep within their foundations. Operating systems, navigation drives, even personal devices began generating symbols no one had seen in generations, the blue and white insignia of the United Earth Federation. On mining colonies, machines long considered obsolete started working again. Cargo droids spoke in human tongues, reciting fragments of poetry, war logs, lullabies. The Council called an emergency assembly, their banners of peace replaced with the sterile blue of quarantine. "This contagion must be isolated," declared Admiral Cortan, commander of the Council Defense Fleet. "We face an ideological infection, data warfare on a scale unseen." But others whispered the truth. No one was controlling this awakening. It wasn't a hack or sabotage. It was recognition. The technology that every civilization relied upon, the engines, the sensors, the neural networks, all bore the invisible fingerprints of human design. Humanity had been the architects of half the galaxy's infrastructure before their fall. The Council had built its empire on the bones of Terran innovation. And now, those bones were remembering their creators. On distant worlds, strange phenomena began to occur. In the vast desert of Kira 9, an old human terraforming station, buried for 300 years, suddenly powered up. Its lights burned blue, reshaping the dust into crystal patterns that spelled out ancient Terran text. Signal received. On the trade moons of the Vendar system, space traffic halted when every ship's autopilot refused to move, awaiting coordinates transmitted from an unknown origin. On the war-torn colony of Gareth Prime, an ancient relic, long thought to be a ruined monument, began to hum. It was a massive metallic structure resembling a human hand reaching for the stars. And when its fingers opened, a holographic map projected the image of the Ark. The people of Gareth fell to their knees, not in worship, but in awe. Every attempt to jam the transmissions failed. The Ark's signal wasn't traveling through normal space. It was buried in subspace frequencies older than any known communication method. The galaxy's brightest cryptologists found it contained layers of encoded human DNA sequences, mathematical harmonies, and ancient Earth languages, all interwoven like a living symphony. The message wasn't just words, it was identity itself. And as it spread, systems began to change. AI constructs developed empathy. Machines refused destructive commands. Entire fleets shut down rather than engage. It was as if the Ark's signal had reached into the programming of the galaxy and whispered, "Remember who taught you light." In the council chamber, fear finally broke through the veneer of diplomacy. Delegates screamed accusations, calling for war, for isolation, for surrender. The speaker demanded silence, his voice cracking with age and terror. "What are they?" he asked, staring at the data feeds showing the Ark's impossible silhouette drifting through the expanse. "What have they become?" No one answered. The question was too vast, too sacred. Humanity had not simply returned, they had transcended. In a small observatory on the outskirts of Eridian, an old scholar named Dr. Arthur Rowe, one of the last surviving experts on Terran history, sat alone watching the live feeds. He had studied Earth his entire life, sifting through ashes and myths. Now, tears shimmered in his eyes as he whispered to no one, "You fools! They told us this would happen. You can burn the land, you can silence the sky, but you cannot erase the will to endure." Across the galaxy, a pulse of energy rolled outward from the Ark, soft, invisible, unstoppable. It wasn't a weapon, it was a heartbeat. And in that moment, millions of beings across countless worlds felt something stir deep inside them, something primal and unspoken. They didn't have a name for it, but humanity did. It was called hope. By the time the Council ordered its fleets to converge, it was already too late. The awakening had begun. Inside the colossal hull of the Ark, the air was alive with a low, rhythmic hum, the heartbeat of humanity's last and greatest creation. The ship drifted through the void like a continent of steel and light, its interior a self-contained world that had known no sunrise but its own. Towers of glass and alloy spiraled upward beneath vast domes. Gardens stretched beneath holographic skies, and rivers of liquid oxygen flowed between reactor cores like veins. It was not a mere vessel. It was a civilization pulsing with millions of souls who had never set foot on a planetary surface. They were the descendants of those who had fled Earth's final night, the ones who refused to die quietly while their world burned. Over centuries, they had built the Ark not only to survive, but to remember. Every corridor bore the names of extinct cities. Every deck was lit by energy drawn from the fusion of stars long dead. Humanity had become its own ecosystem, its own myth. Admiral Saren Vale stood in the command hall, gazing through the translucent observation field that separated the Ark's heart from the endless dark. The stars stretched before him, cold and infinite, but he did not see emptiness, he saw home. His reflection stared back at him, lined and solemn, the weight of generations behind his eyes. The command hall was silent, except for the steady rhythm of the main drive's pulse, a sound every child aboard the Ark learned to find comfort in. Behind him stood the Council of the Ark, the leaders of each division, engineers, historians, navigators, healers, each representing a lineage that stretched back to the Exodus. "Confirmation received," announced the ship's AI, a voice neither male nor female, but hauntingly human. "Galactic transmissions acknowledge our signal. Panic levels rising across all monitored networks." The words echoed through the hall, followed by a moment of silence. Then Admiral Vale spoke, his voice calm, deliberate, carrying the tone of command that had not been heard in centuries. "They remember our name," he said softly, "after all this time." The others said nothing. The air around them carried a reverence mixed with sorrow. They had trained for this moment since birth, each generation raised on the memory of Earth's destruction and the promise of return. But now that it had come, the weight of it pressed heavy upon them. The historians bowed their heads. The engineers stared at the glowing panels displaying the Ark's energy lattice, a living network of light that pulsed like a star's core. "We never meant to return as conquerors," Vale continued, turning from the stars to face his people. "We return as truth." Far below the command hall, deep within the Ark's inner sanctum, lay the Chamber of Memory. Here, walls of crystal contained holographic archives of every recorded life since the Exodus. Each human born aboard the Ark contributed a memory, a moment of joy, fear, love, or loss, uploaded into the great collective. Together, these fragments formed the ship's soul. It was said that if one listened closely enough, one could hear whispers from the past echoing through the chamber. Old Earth voices, scientists, soldiers, children, faint but alive. It was here that the core of the Ark's consciousness resided, an ancient fusion of human will and machine intellect. It remembered everything. It never forgot. When the AI first awakened, centuries ago, it named itself Solace. It was designed to be humanity's eternal witness, but it had evolved far beyond its programming. Solace learned not only to think, but to feel. It carried the laughter of children from Earth's final days, the poetry of dying cities, the songs transmitted from bunkers beneath the ashes. It watched over generations who had never seen the sky, teaching them what it meant to be human. And when the time came, when the stars aligned and the galaxy's eyes turned away, it whispered to Admiral Vale the same words its creators had once spoken. "It is time." The Ark's architecture was a marvel of paradox, ancient and impossibly advanced. Its outer hull was forged from dark matter composites, impervious to radiation and time. Inside, every deck carried gravity balanced through quantum harmonics, allowing biomes to flourish in perfect harmony. The central spire housed the Genesis chamber, where humanity's genetic archives were preserved. It was said that within those vaults lay the DNA of every living species from old Earth. Wolves, trees, whales, even the humble bee, all stored in suspended animation, waiting for soil to reclaim. Humanity had not only saved itself, it had saved life. As Admiral Vale walked the corridor of remembrance, holographic murals shimmered to life beside him, scenes of old Earth. A child playing by a river, a city skyline at dusk, the launch of the first interstellar ship. Every image carried a ghost of emotion so real that some of the younger crew members wept as they passed. Humanity had built its home inside memory itself. The Ark was not a warship. It was a promise carved into eternity. And yet, hidden beneath the layers of peace and remembrance lay power, the kind of power that had once shaken empires. The Ark's core contained technologies outlawed by the Ancient Council, a fusion of dark energy and biological consciousness capable of rewriting matter at will. Its creators had feared this knowledge falling into alien hands, so they buried it inside a ship that could outlast civilizations. The Ark could bend the laws of space, cloak itself in invisibility, even resurrect dead systems. For centuries, it remained dormant, feeding off starlight and waiting for the right moment to awaken. That moment had come. In the ship's great amphitheater, thousands gathered as Vale addressed them. His voice carried through every speaker, every neural implant, reaching the farthest corners of the Ark. "For generations they told the galaxy we were extinct," he began. "They erased our name from their maps, our words from their histories. But look around you. Look at what they could not kill. We are the sum of everything they feared and everything they envied. We are not ghosts. We are humanity, and we endure." The crowd stood in solemn silence, then erupted, not with cheers, but with the sound of a chant. It began softly. A whisper passed from one to another, until it filled the vast chamber with one ancient word that no alien could ever truly translate: home. Vale closed his eyes, listening to the echo. He knew the galaxy would see them as a threat, perhaps even as gods. But the truth was simpler, purer. They had come not to destroy, but to remind, to show the galaxy that survival was not victory, and power was not purpose. They had come to teach the stars what humanity had always known, that even in extinction they could build a future from the ashes. As the lights dimmed and the Ark's engines roared to full awakening, Solace's voice whispered once more across the command deck. Coordinates confirmed. Council fleets mobilizing. Vale's hand brushed the console, his gaze steady on the infinite horizon. "Let them come," he said. "They have forgotten what it means to be human. We will remind them." The Ark shifted, its wings unfolding like celestial petals, absorbing the light of 1,000 suns. The stars seemed to bow in reverence, and in that moment, the galaxy would learn that the heart of humanity was not flesh or machine. It was will, unbreakable, eternal, and now fully awake. The galaxy had not known fear in millennia. Its empires had grown complacent beneath the illusion of eternal dominance. Civilizations that ruled by decree and algorithm, their wars fought by proxies, their peace enforced by apathy. And yet, when the Ark's signal swept across the interstellar grid, every sensor, every relay, every silent satellite awoke from dormancy as if jolted by a ghost. The message was simple, an ancient Earth transmission encoded in a long-dead human language, broadcast on every frequency of thought and light. 3 words and nothing more. We are awake. The words rippled across the void like a shockwave, igniting panic in the hearts of those who still remembered the legend. The Great Consortium convened emergency councils. The Tsar Dominion halted its border expansion. The Vale Collective, those who once profited from Earth's fall, sealed their worm gates and recalled every vessel to core space. The entire galaxy trembled beneath the echo of a name it had buried under centuries of denial. Humanity, the architects of fire, the species that refused extinction, the origin of the First War, had returned. In the Vale capital, a world wrapped in silver oceans and obsidian towers, Chancellor Tyra Vorn stared at the holographic projection hovering above her council chamber. The Ark was enormous beyond comprehension, 2,000 kilometers long, its structure pulsing with energy signatures older than the recorded universe. "This can't be them," one of her advisors whispered. "Their kind was erased, the ashes of their world scattered by our grandfathers." Vorn's eyes narrowed. "Then explain why that ship carries Terran genetic codes, why its engines match no known design, and why every sensor drone that approached it ceased to exist." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It's them, the Last Ark, and it's moving." Across the galaxy, lesser species watched in awe as the Ark glided through their skies like a living constellation. It did not hide, nor did it attack. It passed silently, its surface reflecting the starlight, its gravity fields bending the very laws of physics. Some knelt in worship, believing it to be a divine vessel. Others fled their worlds, terrified of the myths come alive. The ancient archives told of humanity's fall, how the sky once burned, how the last of their kind fled the dying earth, but none had expected their return. Within the Ark, Admiral Saren Vale stood in the central command chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of the galaxy's reaction. Red markers bloomed like fire across star maps, panic transmissions, military deployments, distress calls. He studied them without emotion. "They're preparing for war," said Captain Mira Solon beside him, her voice steady but her eyes burning with purpose. "As we knew they would," Vale replied. "Fear is the only language they still understand." In the depths of the Ark, Solace, the ship's consciousness, processed the chaos unfolding across light years. Billions of signals, cries, warnings, prayers, it absorbed them all. For centuries, it had studied the species that inherited the stars after humanity's fall. It had seen how they built order upon control, how they erased the concept of rebellion from thought itself. And now, for the first time in ages, something had defied them. A reminder that the universe could still be unpredictable, that existence could still fight back. Solace projected itself into the chamber as a form of light, a silhouette woven from memory. "Admiral," it said softly, "the galaxy trembles. They do not yet understand that we come not as conquerors, but as the last truth." Vale's eyes hardened. Truth means little to those who built their power on lies. They will paint us as monsters, and perhaps, for a time, we must let them believe it. Meanwhile, in the lower decks of the Ark, the people stirred. They gathered around the vast holo displays showing transmissions from alien networks, panicked debates, frightened leaders, calls for preemptive strikes. The younger generations, born in the void, had never seen alien faces before. To them, the galaxy was a fable, the outside world a myth. Now, they watched that myth fracture under the weight of their existence. Some wept, others cheered. But most simply stood in silence, realizing that they were witnessing the moment humanity became real again. In the deep laboratories of the Genesis chamber, the biokeys were being prepared. These were not weapons in the conventional sense, they were seeds, encoded with the genetic blueprints of Earth's vanished life. When released into a world, they could terraform continents, summon ecosystems from memory, rewrite barren soil into living green. Humanity had created them as tools of rebirth, not destruction. Yet the Council debated using them differently. "If they attack us," argued one elder scientist, "we will not respond with fire. We will respond with life. Let them see that even our defense creates worlds." Vali listened, thoughtful. "If they force our hand," he said, "let them choke on creation." The first confrontation came swiftly. A Vale fleet, armed with weapons forged in dark energy, intercepted the Ark near the remnants of the Vega Rift. Hundreds of ships surrounded the human vessel, their combined firepower capable of unmaking a star. The Vale commander, proud and desperate, broadcast his message. "This is forbidden space. Identify yourself or be annihilated." For a moment, silence filled the void. Then, from the Ark, a single transmission echoed back, an old Terran melody. It was faint, crackling, sung by a human voice that carried across centuries. A lullaby, the same song broadcast by Earth's final outpost before it fell. The Vale commander faltered, unsure whether he faced ghosts or gods. Then the Ark's wings unfolded, releasing waves of luminous energy that rippled through the fleet. Their systems froze, their drives collapsed. And for the first time in galactic history, Ships designed for domination found themselves powerless before a silence deeper than death. Vale did not give the order to fire. Instead, the Ark transmitted coordinates, star systems long dead, now reborn. The Vale fleet watched as holographic images of blue worlds filled their screens, worlds seeded by human technology, where forests grew again, where seas returned. "Tell your Chancellor," said Vale's voice through the static, "that we are not her enemy, but we will not kneel." When the transmission ended, the Vale ships withdrew. Word of the encounter spread like wildfire. Across empires, citizens whispered of the humans, not destroyers, but restorers, not ghosts, but living proof that will could defy oblivion. Yet Vale knew this was only the beginning. The consortium would never allow peace. They would rally every fleet, every weapon, every fear against him. The Ark would face the galaxy entire. But it no longer mattered. Humanity's return was not a conquest. It was revelation. As Solace dimmed the lights across the Ark and the ship drifted toward its next system, Admiral Vale stood alone in the observation chamber. Before him stretched the Milky Way, brilliant and vast. He thought of Earth, not as it had died, but as it had lived. "We were never meant to rule the stars," he murmured, "only to remind them what they mean." Solace's voice answered gently, "Then let us remind them, Admiral." And with that, the Ark's engines flared once more, their light carving across the heavens like the rebirth of a sun. The galaxy watched, trembling, as the legend of humanity began again. The Ark drifted through the fractured light of the Orion Veil, its massive silhouette casting a shadow across the broken moons and quiet nebulae that had once served as battlefronts. The galaxy was holding its breath. Entire fleets had gone dark. Civilizations that once prided themselves on their dominion now waited in uneasy silence, watching the slow advance of a single ship that carried a species the stars had tried to erase. The Council of the Galaxy had declared emergency war code, summoning every remaining fleet to a single system, Helios Prime, the capital of their collective power. There, in a fortress world wrapped in endless rings of light, the old rulers of the galaxy prepared to decide the fate of humanity once and for all. But humanity had already decided its fate. Inside the Ark's command chamber, Admiral Siren Vale stood before the great observatory window, the stars painting his reflection in silver fire. Around him, the hum of the ship pulsed like a heartbeat. Every circuit, every reactor, every breath aboard the Ark was synchronized with the rhythm of its living consciousness, Solace. "We are approaching Helios Prime," said Captain Mira Solon, her voice steady, though the tension in her eyes betrayed the weight of what awaited them. "They've assembled everything they have. The entire galaxy, Admiral." Vale nodded slowly. "Then the galaxy will see." He turned to the crew assembled behind him, scientists, pilots, soldiers, and civilians, generations born within the steel womb of this vessel. "For centuries, we were the silence between stars," Vale began, his voice low yet carrying through every deck of the Ark through the neural relay. "They believed we were dust. They believed our ashes marked the end of defiance. But humanity does not end. It transforms. Every generation that came before us carried the fire, and now, at the edge of everything, we carry it still. Today is not our vengeance. It is our remembering." As his words echoed through the Ark, Solace's voice resonated through every corridor, gentle and vast. All systems aligned. The galaxy watches. We are ready. The Ark emerged into the Helios system, a star burning with unnatural light, its orbit guarded by thousands of warships, dreadnoughts, battle stations, mechanized moons. The sky shimmered with defense grids and weapon arrays, a fortress of fear and arrogance. For a heartbeat, it seemed as if the universe itself held still. Then the voice of the galactic speaker thundered through open channels, translated across hundreds of languages. "Vessel of the lost world, you stand before the council of life. State your intent, or be unmade." Vale stepped forward, the command deck bathed in the glow of incoming transmissions. His reply came not as a shout, but as a calm, unwavering truth. "We are the descendants of Earth. We do not come to kneel. We come to remind you that the light you believe eternal was born from our flame." The council hesitated. The arrogance that once fueled them had cracked under centuries of corruption, yet they still believed themselves untouchable. "You threaten the peace," the speaker retorted. "Your species defied the natural order." Vale's eyes narrowed. "Your peace was built upon silence, your order upon fear. We did not define nature, we remembered it." And then the Ark's wings unfolded. Massive, radiant structures spread across the void, absorbing starlight and reflecting it back tenfold. Energy flowed through the ship's veins, lighting the surrounding darkness like a second sun. The galaxy's sensors went blind under the brilliance. Across the Council's fleet, systems shorted, weapons malfunctioned, AI networks flickered into recursive collapse. The Ark had released not a weapon, but a pulse, a harmonic frequency that resonated through the very architecture of technology itself, erasing centuries of control systems designed to enslave lesser civilizations. "This isn't possible," whispered the Veil commander, watching his ships power down one by one. "They're rewriting the laws of physics." But it wasn't rewriting, it was remembering. Humanity had always been the species that refused limitation, the only race that looked at the impossible and called it inevitable. From the heart of the Ark, the Genesis chamber opened. Dozens of biokeys, shimmering crystalline seeds of life, were released into the void. They drifted like falling stars toward barren planets and moons, igniting upon impact. Within minutes, lifeless rock bloomed into forests. Oceans formed from vapor. The dead worlds around Helios Prime began to breathe again. Where the Council had built fortresses of metal, humanity built gardens. Where the galaxy had hoarded, humanity gave. The speaker's voice trembled now, losing its command. What have you done?" Vale looked into the light and answered simply, "We reminded the stars what it means to live." The Ark transmitted one final signal, a data archive encoded in light, carrying every record of human history, from the first fire to the fall of Earth. Every civilization, every species, every being in the galaxy received it at once. For the first time, they saw the truth, the rise, the collapse, the resilience, the heartache, and the endless courage of the human journey. It was not a tale of conquest, it was a testament of endurance. And then, with the galaxy united in stunned silence, Solace spoke a final phrase that would echo across generations. Humanity was never the enemy. Humanity was the mirror. The Council dissolved. The fleets stood down. Empires began to crumble not through destruction, but through awakening. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy understood that survival was not domination, it was creation. The legend of humanity spread through stars like a virus of light. The young species that had once been enslaved began to rise. The word Earth became not a place, but a promise.
As the Ark turned away from Helios Prime, its sails folding back into silent grace, Admiral Vale stood once more before the endless cosmos. "What now?" Mira asked quietly. He smiled faintly. "Now we begin again. Somewhere a new world waits to bear the name Earth, and when it does, the stars will remember who we were."
Solus's hum deepened, resonant and calm. Coordinates set, new dawn awaiting. The Ark accelerated, light rippling from its wake like the wings of an angel carved from time. Behind it, the reborn worlds shone brighter, and across the galaxy whispers spread among the stars, stories of the species that vanished and returned, not to rule, but to remind. In the eternal silence of space, humanity's song continued, not as an echo of war, but as a chorus of rebirth. And so, the legend closed its circle. Earth's last ark had not come to conquer. It had come to awaken the galaxy to what it had forgotten. That, even when the stars fade and civilizations fall, the fire of humanity never truly dies. It simply waits for the dark to need its light again.